Hello and welcome to the Foil AI Legal Product Showcase. So I've got with me today Simon Murray from DWF and Foil, who's going to talk you through the work that Foil has been doing in the AI arena lately, and also a little bit about how the event's going to pan out. Before I hand over to Simon, a quick mention to register on the Foil website if you've not done so already, so you can receive updates and events and news. And also at the bottom of our website, there's a link to follow us on the Foil LinkedIn account, where we post all kinds of useful information and news. If I could ask you to make sure your microphones are on mute, but without any further ado, let me pass you to Simon Murray.
Thanks, Ian. Not Lawrence. So I thought it was worth quickly just touching on how the event will run. We're going to have each one of the businesses present for 10 minutes, so fairly punchy presentations, followed by a 5-minute Q&A, at which point we will eject them from the meeting and admit the next one and repeat until the end. Just now touching on some of the work that Foil's doing in the AI space, I think we're all appreciative how important, how much impact AI is going to have in the law. It's already having some level of impact, but that's only going to accelerate over time. We thought it'd be really useful and hopefully very interesting for members of Foil to actually look and see what was out there in terms of various capabilities around AI. It's a big market, so there are plenty of different businesses that have got capability. So we basically chose 4 which we thought fitted most easily with what people from Foil want to hear and the kind of products they would use. So it has got a focus on the litigator side of things, and there is so that's one of the 7 big reasons why we've chosen the 4 businesses we have, which are Legora, Control AI, TrialView, and GoodFact. And they're going to run in that particular order. We will have some time at the end, once all of the presenters have done their presentation, to have a general discussion. So think of some things to discuss there. Also do think of some questions for the presenters as they go through. I'd suggest you probably put those in the chat, because then we can curate them more easily and have them kind of prepared. But it seems to me that's probably a good point to hand over to Alex from Legora for him to start us off. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you, Simon, and hello everyone. Great to see you all. So yeah, I'm Alex Webb from Legora. I'm responsible for the sort of UK and Ireland business here, and will do my very best to get through a 10-minute demo. The platform is sort of growing all the time, so it will be reasonably rushed. But obviously, if there are any follow-up questions, more than happy to to do those individually or with a group of you at another time. The very quick overview of Legora, just to sort of orient everyone, is that it is a legal AI platform which fundamentally has the goal of enabling lawyers to easily integrate AI into their day-to-day work, and actually through that get all of the benefits that this technology can bring. It does that through 3 kind of core functionalities, I'd say, and we'll go through each of them very quickly. So one is what we call tabular review, which is really a functionality where you can define a set of review points for any type of document, and you can put those against any number of documents. I'll show you that one first. We also have a lot of AI functionality integrated into Word. So I'll show you our Word add-in and a very quick view of how that works, and particularly like the sort of playbook functionality. And then we have an assistant, which is probably the most familiar tool to most people, but closest to a sort of ChatGPT interface, but adjusted for legal use cases. And then if we've got time, I'll show you a couple of our sort of newer features, which may be of interest. So let me share my screen. Let me know if you can see that. Is that sharing, Simon? Yes, fantastic. I can see you nodding. Great. So this is the home screen. Let me just very quickly go to tabular review, which is the sort of first feature that I was talking about. And you can think of this as a grid, which enables you to set up any kind of review. And I know we've got in this group a focus really on litigation or contentious use cases. So let me just pull in a load of documents. We've got this sort of e-discovery database here. So this is 125, mostly emails, I think, but other documents that might be part of the evidence bundled in a piece of litigation. What the tool then allows you to do is actually create a set of questions that you want to ask about this set of documents, and it'll do this on an individual basis. So, for example, I could specify that I want a date. I label this the date, and then I say, what is the date of this piece of correspondence? Question mark, click away. And now the system will already start looking at these. And I've limited it here to the sort of top 10 just to save time, but it will instantly pull out from each file the date, assuming there is one. In this case, it obviously couldn't find it. So there may not be a date in there. The principle here, though, is that you can always check this as well. So you can click in, it will give you the answer, it will give you the reasoning. I mean, reasoning for dates is obviously a slightly moot point, but you can also click into the actual document and it will highlight the section where it's found that information. So very easy to check. And obviously, the big worry with these language models is always hallucination, and this is really the mitigation for that. Now, what you can also do is have templates. So when you do work on a sort of repeated basis, or you have specific questions that you ask, you can set up a template, and it will then populate a group of columns, all of which have been predefined, and you can save down any time that you do this work, and that will then run across all of these documents as well. So you can see here it's already pulling out specific information from each contract in this way. And this is the type of work that I can certainly remember myself as a trainee doing in an Excel spreadsheet and spending hours on it. What this tool allows you to do is really do that in a very, very short period of time. You also have optionality of what you do with the data then. So you can export it if you want to. So you can download this into Excel or into a Word document. You can decide what you include. Do you include the prompts? Do you include the reasoning? And so forth. And this really works with sort of any type of document, any types of questions. And the typical process for sort of clients is really just to sort of iterate on those questions to get the best results. We've also recently introduced this sort of chat function over here. So what this is this enables you to sort of put AI over the tabular review that you've done here, and you can start asking questions of it. So for example, you could ask, how many letters are there in this, in this set of documents, or what are the key themes that come out of the summaries here? I won't go through that now, just in the interest of time, but just so you're aware, that functionality exists. All right, very brief overrun of tabular review there. Second thing I was going to show you is just our Word add-in. So this functionality is native in Word, so I've already got it open here, but essentially you download it from the App Store, or if you're in an IT controlled environment, they can do it for you. You then will have this little button here you can click on, and then it gives you essentially all of the sort of AI power from the app here. And you can do a ton of things you can do. I was going to show you one interesting sort of potential use case here is if I take the outputs of a tabular review, and I'll just show you the document as well while it's adding. So this is what an export from tabular review looks like. We just had a few documents that we reviewed. These were the sort of columns, parties, scope, term, all these things. So if I just put this in here as context, and I say now to the model, please complete this DD template with the information in the attached document. And then I start that going, what it will actually do is sort of look at the two documents, identify what information needs to be pulled from this underlying document, and then populate this document here. While it's doing that, let me just flick over quickly to another document. So this is just a simple sort of NDA, but just as an illustrative example. You can also do things like ask the system to, make general edits. So one example that I often use is just to say, turn this mutual NDA into a one-way NDA. And what it will start doing then is actually going through and suggesting edits, removing things like mutual. It changes the party names from sort of Lagora and Company. It goes through and changes essentially in every clause all of these references to receiving party and disclosing party. So you can save a lot of time on sort of relatively administrative drafting tasks like that. The other thing in here that's interesting is the playbooks feature. So if you have consistent sets of questions around a contract or negotiating something like an NDA, you can actually define a sort of set of rules which you want to be examined, and then the system will run through and actually say, okay, I've evaluated the contract against your set of rules, and these are all bespoke, so you can define a starting position, a fallback, multiple fallbacks if you want to, and also any items that are not acceptable. And then the system will go through and start assessing the document in that context. And that will take a little while to run. So I think I have another one here, which is pre-run. So this is another confidentiality agreement, but this has gone through, and what it gives you is a summary of the rules. So in this case, it's assessed that 9 of the rules were not met. 3 of them were met, but only in line with a fallback, and 1 was met in line with your standard position. So you can get all of these. It suggests for each one the types of additional drafting that would be appropriate to make it compliant with your specific requirements. And you can then opt to add that in on a one-off basis, or you can opt to apply all changes. These will then go through and redline the document, and you can then review that yourself. So that's how the sort of word add-in works. I'll just flip back to the first example we did and see if that has sort of finished there. So it's done the same thing here. It's suggested changes based on the document. Go through all of those. I'll apply all of those as well. And we can see how that sort of starts to come through down here. Okay, so very red.
So that's 10 minutes, Alex. We'll let you just finish off, and then I'll add the time to the others, so they're the same amount of time. So I'll give you another minute or so just to wrap up.
Okay, thank you. Apologies. I knew it would be tough. So just very quickly then, that was a word add in. We also have this assistant, which is great for all kinds of things. So you can point it at specific areas of legal research. We also have a web search functionality, which essentially enables you to do sort of 40 web searches in parallel and then synthesize the output. You can also point the assistant at specific sort of databases. I'll maybe just go to history to show you a sort of good example. What I did here is I just pulled in 3 witness statements, and I asked the system with a very, very basic prompt, just compare these in a table. And this is sort of what came out. So it defines the sort of categories of comparison. It then, for each of the witness statements, gives you the relevant information. And of course, this is always fully referenced, so you know exactly where it's come from in the document. So, all right, apologies for going over. I will wrap up.
No apologies needed, Alex. It was very good. You rattled through there so well. So, no questions in the chat just at the moment. Anybody want to raise their hand and ask one verbally? No? Okay. Okay, I'll ask you one. Not pre-prepared, I should say. I won't ask you about hallucinations because I'll have to ask everyone the same question, so that seems slightly silly. I suppose just in terms of roadmap for the product, kind of where is the next obvious place for you to go? Obviously cognizant of the fact that a couple of the competition are potentially on the call and you wouldn't share anything that's confidential, but where can you see the Lagora product going from here, particularly with through a litigation lens, if indeed you've got something that you can share?
Yeah, so I think the sort of key themes for us, so one is there'll be more and more integration across the platform. So you'll be able to do more of linking up all of these different things. And one thing I didn't have time to show there was actually the workflows feature, which we released last week, which essentially enables you to set up a series of activities for the AI to do. So you could say, find these documents in a specific database, perform a tabular review, and the system will do that all on its own. It won't do the sort of manual way that I did it. And then based on the outputs of the tabular review, give me a summary email, which I can use to send to a client. And you'll be able to just do that automatically, sort of a push of a button, basically, rather than having to step through manually.
So that is the much vaunted agentic capability that's been
exactly, and so that's agentic. The agentic stuff actually goes through the platform now. So even a basic query on the assistant will now use multiple agents to do things like read the documents, take notes from the documents, take those notes, put them together, synthesize them, identify where it needs to go back to the documents. But yes, that is exactly right, Simon. So those workflow steps will then use an agent to step through. The sort of in parallel, the other thing that's happening is the system itself will be able to sort of set those workflows up at a sort of query level. So it will suggest to you, okay, based on your query, what I think the best approach would be is to, take this subset of documents, create a tabular review with these questions, and then I will summarize, these particular elements. So, this is sort of basic stuff. You'll then be able to sort of okay that and say, or say, no, actually, that's not quite right. I prefer you to do X, Y, and Z. So basically, it'll become more and more like instructing, perhaps a trainee or a junior lawyer or something like that, less and less sort of having to go through the steps yourself. But yeah, I'd say that's the high level. There's other stuff like I think we've just today released deep research and things like that. So there's always new features being added. But yeah, that's probably the highest sort of highest priority stuff.
Super. Thanks, Alex.
Cool. Shall I drop off?
Yeah. You can drop off if you want. You can stay off if you want. Stay on if you want. It's really up to you. That's the choice is yours. Just making sure no one's got a question that's come to mind in that. Seeing as we've got a couple of minutes left for Alex's slot, if anybody has had anything come to mind, can't see any hand raised. No. Superb. Okay. Thanks, Alex. Moving on now to Control AI. So hopefully Nikki's on the call.
Yeah, Nikki's on the call too.
Superb.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can
indeed. Over to you,
Excellent. Hear my nasal voice this afternoon, I'm afraid. Delighted to be here. Thank you very much. I'm the Chief Product Officer and co-founder at Control AI. So I'll start with a bit of a very brief background of me. So got an operational background. So I was at Freshfields, responsible for the design and delivery of legal solutions and legal technology. And more recently, I was legal operations director at Liberty Global, responsible for managing teams that were looking after sort of in the thousands of disputes per year. So our product is called Control Disputes, and I'll start with three key questions to just set the context of the product. So the first is what is Control Disputes? So it's an agentic AI platform, helps organizations to assess and resolve a range of different disputes, from ombudsman claims, employee disputes, debt recovery, consumer litigation, etc. And we really operate in the cognitive layer of disputes. So we're very assistive in nature, and we speed up the cognitive assessment of cases. And people can use the product as a triaging tool on disputes, or they can use it as a full assessment, as you'll see in the product. So who uses it? Legal professionals, case handlers. We sort of sit in between the operational teams and the legal teams. So used by legal teams, but also used in those operational teams that have a heavy legal oversight to the activities that are being performed. And finally, why do enterprises use Control Disputes? The first is efficiency. So the product saves 40 to 60% time versus manual assessments, speed to resolutions, high pressure on processing disputes quickly. And we give a consistency of approach to how you look at disputes. So we're guided by an organization's playbook, and that allows you to have high degrees of consistency in approach and fairness. So having an auditable trail at that cognitive decision-making process, organizations find really helpful. So without further ado, let me get into the product so you can actually see this. Can you see that on the screen okay? Super. Okay, so as a case handler, I get a view of all the cases that are assigned to me in the platform. You can see we've got the range of different dispute types in here. So you can see an ombudsman complaint, debt, consumer litigation. We've got a range of different disputes, and the way that cases are started in the platform, one of two ways. So you can see here there's a manual way for me to upload a case into the platform. I'm looking for some sort of case outline and evidence in the main that kickstarts the process. So I can do that manually within the tool, but I think what we're finding more and more is actually you want to integrate this to your technology stack. You want this data flowing in through APIs from your case management system. So we're super flexible on setting that up. So the way that these case types come together, I will show you before we go into an example case type, is we call these the sort of 4 building blocks of a case type. So you start with the knowledge-based resources, and these are think of these as the operating manual for the new starter in the team. These describe your approach to how you manage these kinds of disputes. So that might be playbooks, drafting guidelines, precedent cases, anything that you would give to a new starter. Typically we say, you should put these in here. The next is case specific fields. So these are fields that you will be drawing out as part of that case assessment, typically structured data fields. And then you've got your assessments. We'll go into these in more detail because you see how these come to life in the platform. But for different case types, we have different assessments that can be really customized to an organization. You'll see how that comes to life in a second. And then outputs. So what are then the outputs that you will have of those case types, like documentation, correspondence, all of those sorts of things. So with these set up, so you can see this is how we have different case types in here, and you see how the building blocks work. So if we go back to the screen, I'll show you what this looks like in a sample case. So here the agentic AI has run the case. It's gone through all the information of the case, all the evidence, and it's produced me a summary of the case with some key points. So this gives me a quick orientation of, okay, what's this case about? What are the key points that I need to understand from this? There's a few other more operational fields, and we've got an audit report at the bottom. Really, really key. This shows what changes have been made when, and it enables me to download a full AI audit report for that transparency and explainability of how decisions have been made on this case. Then we move across to the evidence tab. So all those files that I've ingested, and typically, when you're managing one of these cases, a file list of badly named PDFs and images and all kinds. So the AI runs over each piece of evidence, and we're extracting a few key information. So we've got title. It gives a brief summary of what is actually in that documentation, date or date range, and then we can start to build in views like how relevant is this in the context of this case. How much does it support the claimant's position, the defendant's position? So as a case handler on this, it helps me sort of look around and navigate through the evidence. I can dive in and get more of an AI generated summary and insights for this particular piece of evidence. And crucially, I can get through to the piece of evidence as well itself. So I can go right into the detail. Add new pieces of evidence in, and it will flow through and be assessed. Another way to look at the evidence, we have the timeline tab here. So this looks for key relevant events in the context of a case, and then plots them onto a timeline. So again, as I'm coming into this case fresh, I can look at where was this first an issue, what are the key events, and it allows me to dive into the evidence at the relevant point as well. So just another way to navigate around the evidence, and this is particularly helpful. If you've got key piece of evidence that's maybe PDF with lots and lots of information in it, and there's key events throughout there. On this page I can see at a document level, and on this page I can see at an event level. and helps me navigate around a dispute. Okay, so moving on to the next tab. So this is the assessments tab. So here, typically, we'll have a general assessment that's run over the case. Now, all of our assessments are using your organization's playbook that I referenced at the start, and that helps. If you think of the agentic AI here is running, it understands the case, then it understands from your playbook what are the relevant things that I need to bear in mind from the organization's playbook when looking at this case, or how to look at this case. And then it runs over the case and the evidence to make these assessments. So here it gives me general assessment, arguments for the claim, arguments against the claim, again, reference and some insights. I can also run some additional assessments within the platform here. So the first one in here is the evidence gap analysis. This really looks at the evidence, says, okay, what's missing in my evidence bank that is going to make the difference or could move the needle on me being able to arrive at a resolution or an outcome of the case. So typically, these are things like there has been an interaction that's referenced that I don't have a log for, or an email chain that's been referenced that I don't see, a contract maybe that isn't in there, etc. So these sorts of things. This can be run quite early in the case, and then it gives you okay, I should go away and find these bits of evidence and add them into the case. Case recommendation, similar case assessment. I'll just run this for you. This looks at similar so cases within the platform, but we can also hook it up to external data sources. So have there been similar cases that would help me arrive at a decision for a more consistent approach? And then it can summarize those cases in the context of this case, give me some helpful information. So this has pulled out a few cases that are similar, and the outcomes and the key insights. So again, what we're trying to do is just create that consistency, but in a controlled way. So as a case handler looking at these assessments, a really important principle here. So I can review, I can edit these, and I can verify these as being okay. These are now human verified pieces of information. And then we go through to outputs. So as part of a case, and I showed you how these cases come together. So you can have different outputs for different case types. And again, using the playbook, we can make these really specific. So you can have previous examples of outputs, you can have your drafting guidelines, etc., which helps produce a really good first draft. So here we have customer response. I'll do a defense outline here to just generate this.
And Nicky, just while we're pausing, you've got just over a minute left.
Perfect. Thank you for that reminder of the time. So here, so in this case, I've produced a defense outline, but it said, hey, probably not worth doing that in this case because you've got a very weak case. But you can see how these are drafted and put together. And again, I can verify these, I can edit. And to that integration point, I can send these to my case management system, to my CMS. So, and so on this case, we've ingested a case, the agentic AI has run over, done some analysis, enabled us to get insights from evidence, we've performed some assessments on the case, and we've generated some outcomes. So, and we've done this in a really efficient way, and I've also got a fully auditable case history here that I can refer to on not just what's happened on a case, but why and how decisions have been arrived at.
Super. Thanks, Nicky. And I think in fairness, seeing as I asked Alex from Legora what their product map looks like, and seeing as that, I guess that is a little bit of an invitation to explain the future and pitch slightly. It's only fair that I ask you the same question. I'll do the same for the other presenters as well. So cognizant of the fact that you're fairly sort of new in your journey as a business, that seems to be especially pertinent for you guys. So yeah, where next for control disputes, so control AI and control disputes?
So I think one of the key things is, so the roadmap that we've been on, we started as a single use case platform. and we've now elevated to multiple types of dispute in the platform, as you can see. And I think that will continue. So what we want to build out here is really rich, deep use cases across all manner of disputes, and that's really a key focus point for us. I think the other areas that we're going into are things like being able to assess videos, audio files. So there's some functionality pieces in there that make the platform much more usable across different case types, and also mirroring the answer Lagora game. And I think it'll be a key theme is the integrations piece as well. So we're really embracing the ecosystem. We're operating in that cognitive assessment layer. We're not trying to replace things like your case management system in there. So for us, having that really seamless transition for users between their areas where they're already working is critical.
Great stuff. Again, no questions in the chat, but anybody got one burning question that they want to put their hand up and ask, or indeed type in the chat for Ian or I to repeat?
And if anyone thinks of any questions after you've digested all this information, I mean, find us in all the usual places, but feel free to reach out.
Superb. Okay. Thanks, Nikki. I think moving on to trial view now, and I believe David's on. Yes, David, I think you're on.
Stephen. I think it's Stephen, isn't it?
Oh, Stephen.
Yeah, David is hogging the limelight here. Can you hear me there okay?
Yes, got you, Stephen.
Yes, we can.
Good, okay, thank you very much. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. So the clock starts ticking now. I'm Stephen Dowling. I'm the founder and director of TrialView. It's a pleasure to be here, and thanks very much, Simon and Lawrence, for inviting us along. Just a bit of a background to TrialView. So I've deliberately put the SC letters behind my name just to so people understand that I'm actually, my background is a commercial litigator. I'm a commercial silk by background. And what TrialView is very much focused on litigation and very much focused on managing evidence in disputes, which would include obviously insurance disputes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen with you here briefly, just to give you an overview as to what we're really focusing on in the context of disputes and dispute management. So hopefully I'm going to share my screen here. You should see our homepage. And in essence, what TrialView is focusing on is the challenge that we all have as litigators of marshalling large volumes of evidence and using AI to assist with the management of that. We're being used in many cases, both in the UK and obviously Ireland, as you can tell from my accent. But we're being used in very large scale commercial litigations, which often have an insurance element. So, for example, we were being used in the Russian aviation litigation, which some of you may be aware, which was very substantial in nature and obviously had a lot of documentation. So what we assist parties in doing is taking across all their cases the challenge of managing evidence at any stage in the life cycle of the litigation, and at each stage allowing you to do essentially three things which litigators need to do, which is to organize all the documentation from what is usually a large data dump or data set, to prepare that documentation in the sense that you need to isolate the material you need as a lawyer to advance your case and persuade the decision maker of your cause, or to undermine your opponent's case, and finally to then allow the case to be run on a digital basis. So if you do get to trial, and you may know, as insurance lawyers, our clients rarely want to go to trial. They want to settle their cases and save costs if they can. But if you do get a trial, that you can run the trial efficiently and digitally in a way which is going to save cost, but also lead to a kind of a quicker result. And they're the three things we do, and we do that across the litigation life cycle. So what I'm going to just do is briefly demonstrate some of the features we would have to allow you to essentially go through those stages. When you log into TrialView, what you essentially see is a simple interface where you see all the cases to which you've got access. And we do run our software on a case-by-case or project-by-project basis to allow you, and that's usually the law firm or the in-house counsel, to upload the documentation to a particular case site and to share that documentation with their team and to allow them to collaborate. And throughout this, as you'll see, it's infused with the most modern AI features that are available. If I upload documents directly to a case site, just to give you a sense of the workflow for that. So here I've just got a case site. It's a case called Wisconsin versus Avery, because I've actually uploaded material from this case site to do with a criminal prosecution that's relatively well known in the United States, a case called Wisconsin versus Stephen Avery, which was the subject of a Netflix documentary called Making a Murderer. But I just did this so to give you a sense of how the document flow would work. So here I have my client file into which I've uploaded a lot of documentation, but I want to maybe upload some more documents directly into my client file. So I do that very easy by literally dragging and dropping the documentation directly in, or uploading folders with zip folders. And we've done a lot of work to essentially allow you to upload large volumes of material. In fact, some of the cases we're doing contain material up to 250,000 documents, where you can essentially upload that material and begin to process that in a meaningful way. So what happens is the material is uploaded, and similar to some of the platforms you've seen, it will begin to analyze that material, but the analysis is done for the purpose of allowing you, the lawyer, to properly put structure around the documentation. So for example, I can put in a description field, and you can see there it'll automatically classify those documents: transcripts, evidence, police report, the usual categories of documents that you'll often see depending on the type of case that you're in. It will automatically date those documents as well, and you've seen some dating functionality already from the Lagora site, for example. We would have very similar functionality where the system can read dates on documents, literally read the actual date on the document itself, and those dates will be populated into the date field. And that's critical because, as we know as lawyers, getting dates in very, very quickly is both a challenge, but also it's really important to put structure and meaning around your documents. Once the documents are then uploaded, you can begin to classify them into folders, and we have a quick classification tool. So for example, I can classify all these documents into my team bundles, and I can just begin to classify. You can see here it's already classified the documents into separate sections of bundles. So all the evidence, that's the underlying evidence, is being put into separate sections. The transcripts are put into separate sections: applications, disclosure, submissions. So that's a very, very good way to begin the process of what we would traditionally call bundling, which is essentially to organize the documents into their various sections. And the ultimate output of all that is a fully fledged bundle, whereby long term you're really building up the categories of documentation that we all have to manage when it comes to litigation. So what you're seeing here, for example, is a more developed case site where I've got my particulars, my court orders, my replies, and you can see what's happened, that we've actually put structure around those documents. We've put into a bundle A, we've got global paging, this is bundling functionality, and I can then dive into the documentation and I can start analyzing those documents. And a few things around analysis. So one of the critical things when you're reviewing documentation is, obviously you want to mark it up. You want to be able to search through the documents. But in addition to that, you may want to start using AI to assist you with the analysis of those documents. So here, for example, I'm going to just analyze a particular document that's in the system. It's one of the interviews that's in this particular case. So I'm going to open this document up. I can see my previous notes that I've created. I can search through that document, or I can ask AI a question. So here I've asked AI to identify inconsistencies that might exist within the document. I'm going to put that question in again to see, so you can see it happening live. But the background to this particular document, it's an interview with a witness. In fact, the interview is with a guy called Brendan Dassey, who, for those of you who are familiar with the particular documentary, will remember he was interviewed by police and confessed to a murder. But in that particular interview, it's riddled with internal inconsistencies. So you can see here that the system immediately on that document has identified those inconsistencies in different statements. So Brendan initially said he did not see the victim, then he admitted he did. And within that, we've got those nice references where you can directly go to the sections of the documents which identify the inconsistencies that it's analyzing. So I can come in here, I can say that's very interesting. I now want to build up intelligence around that. So I'm going to link that to the question of to the claimant's evidence of the case. I'm also going to link it to credibility issues. So what we're doing is we're using AI, we're keeping the human in the loop, but we're building up intelligence around the documentation. And the advantage of that is that the system can then use your own intelligence that you've applied to better understand the issues and the documentation in the case. And that leads to a scenario where over time, because you've built up different tags and issues and intelligence around the case, you can then ask questions not only across one document, but you can ask questions across the entire database. And these questions can be very relevant to critical issues in the case. So for example, I can ask the question, when was the victim last seen? The victim in this case is a lady called Teresa Halbach, and she went missing. And it's now going to search not across one document, but literally across thousands of documents and thousands of pages. It's going to give me an answer to the question, and it's going to source that answer, root that answer in the documentation itself. So wherever that answer appears, or wherever the facts appear relevant to that answer, it brings it back up. And then I can take it to the next level. I can say, for example, generate a timeline, maybe give my answer in a table format of our movements on that particular day, and it will do the same thing. And it critically, not just across one document, but across all the documents in the case. It gives a nice table. You can copy that into your Word documents or export it out, and you can click on the links directly and bring you to exactly the right point in the document which supports that. So what this is doing essentially is allowing you analyze relevant information and then use that relevant information to isolate and surface all the critical documents in the case, which would include lists of material relevant to issues, which you can then add back into your bundles and into the sections. The other thing that's important is we also allow you to do a lot of the practical stuff you're going to need as a litigator. So simple things. So for example, I might want to, after I've classified my documents and maybe I've found the material that's relevant to particular issues in the case, I might want to export that out and create a merged bundle. So I can easily merge the documents into a PDF. So I can export all these documents out into a merged bundle and click create. And the advantage of this, it means that in minutes, in fact, in seconds, I can create a merged PDF of all the documents, which is nicely indexed. I can just show you what that looks like if I download it.
You've got about 45 seconds, Stephen, just
fantastic. Great. So you create a merged exported bundle, which is really the result of a lot of hard work in analyzing the documents. You've now collated them into one place. It's all hyperlinked. It's all indexed. And you can search through those entire documents. So what we're really doing is we're allowing you marshal that material, interrogate that material, and critically or allow you organize it in such a way that you can then export it out or use it in the normal way as you would for litigation. So on that note, I'll finish.
Thanks, Stephen. Very good. So I've got two questions for you. We're pleased to know, or not pleased to know, but I'll ask you the first one. I'll ask everybody else. If there is a further product roadmap for TrialView, what does it look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So you've seen the direction of travel there in terms of the volume of a document. So our focus really is on marshalling large volumes. So at this stage, our sweet spot is in early case evaluation, also in trial preparation, but we are being used to a certain extent in the disclosure space as well. So what the roadmap very much is, we're going to be moving into disclosure so that we can actually satisfy parties from beginning to end, from early case evaluation into the disclosure production, then to trial preparation, and then to the trial. So for those of you familiar with the phrase EDRM, we're hoping to really start to be able to use AI to get us across the entire EDRM.
Superb. And funny enough, in that answer, you answered the second question, which was around disclosure. So that's interesting. Just a very brief point on that. So AI first disclosure, it's still a nascent territory. The courts themselves haven't yet approved or formally approved a methodology for that. But we're very much in discussions with a lot of the people who are in that space, and we're talking to judges
and decision makers in that area. And it won't be long now before we'll have protocols along those lines. And that's going to radically, I think, change litigation and very much insurance litigation as well.
Yeah, entirely agree. Has anybody else got a question for Stephen that they'd like to ask? No? Super. Okay, thanks for that, Stephen. Really interesting.
Thanks for the time, guys. Cheers.
Great. Last but not least, Charlie, good facts. Your 11 minutes starts now, as they say.
Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Simon. Thank you, Simon. Is there a echo?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, there's an echo.
We're ahead of time, so I'll pause your 11
better?
minutes. It is, yeah. So we won't start the clock until now. So you've not lost any time.
My problem with Teams is that I can either talk or listen. So I'm going to now talk, and if there's anyone who wants to say anything, please interrupt me with some kind of symbol. Thank you. Okay. Nice to meet everyone. My name is Tali Green. I'm visiting you here from Toronto, Ontario, so across the pond. And I am a litigation lawyer, also a commercial litigator, and I'm the co-founder of Good Fact, which is a platform built by litigators for litigators. And the distinctive features of Good Fact are that it allows litigation lawyers to see, manage, and tell the story of their case. The critical thing to understand about Good Fact is that it's a place where you go to get a very precise and accurate chronology of your documents, and it's also where you go when you don't know what to ask. So imagine a client just sends you like a massive batch of documents, like a bunch of email threads, PDFs, and you just have no idea where to start. What happened? And the client wants some kind of opinion or early case assessment. You would go to Good Fact to figure that out. So I'm going to share my screen with you and show you how it works. Okay. You're able to share my screen? Sorry, you're able to see my screen, Simon?
We are.
Okay. So Good Fact is where you would upload all your documents, and what I'm showing you here is an instant chronology generated by that upload. So unlike some of the tools we've seen today and the tools on the market, Good Fact does something very unique with email threads in particular. So it works with all types of PDFs and email threads, but for email threads, I really want to zero in on this because I know for commercial lawyers and as well as in the insurance space, you're dealing with complex communications often, and that's often long email threads where you need to understand what people said to each other and what everyone knew when they said what they said. This is not a task that can be left to sort of, a general review of a thread by thread. You really need to drill down into every single email thread and understand how every message interacts with every other message. So Good Fact automates that process. And let me show you what I mean here. So let's see, you have this long email thread. Refresh my screen. Okay, interesting. Okay, this looks like a Teams sharing problem, but you'd be able to view the original here. I don't know why it's not letting you. Well, you can also download it. Okay, it's not. Are you seeing it? Because I'm seeing a black box. Are you seeing a black box too?
Yes, it's in a black box.
Okay. Simon, what did you say?
Yes, we see a black box.
Okay. I can't hear that, because then my my microphone will be echoing. But let's imagine that we have an email thread here that you're able to see. I don't know why it's not viewing for me. So what GoodFact does is it chops up the email thread and puts every individual email in chronological order, and then interlaces all those threads into a single story. So perhaps we can see it here. Yes, okay. Oh, it's creating the black box for me as well here. But the idea is that you'd have a long email thread, and it was all chopped up into individual messages. So now, once you have all of those individual messages thrown into the chronology where they belong, you're now able to really get a sense of what happened in this case. Now, the email threads are parsed and color-coded by thread. So here we are in thread number 1, where these 2 messages were sent, and then that thread continues over here. Okay, so that conversation continues all the way over here. That brown is all one thread. That has now been interrupted by another email thread with the purple right here. And that thread continues. So essentially what you have is 2 email threads that have been interlaced. And this is not done by AI. This is all done rules-based. AI is not capable of doing this accurately and precisely enough. We tried it. Unfortunately, it's not, which is why we had to put in the hard work to actually do this with rules. And what you now get is a true chronology. So not an AI-generated chronology, because AI cannot reliably go into a document and extract the critical facts from it. You should not be trusting AI to do that, because there's a major problem with AI that many people won't tell you, is that it doesn't tell you what it doesn't know, and it doesn't tell you what it missed. So it might open an email thread and say, okay, here's the 5 critical facts from that thread, but it might have missed 4 other ones that you would have thought were really important. So what GoodFact does is it shows you what's in the thread. It shows you how all the messages come together, as well as how all the attachments get slotted into chronological order. So you'll see the attachments to all the emails as well slotted in. And now you have a real accurate chronology that was all generated for you. And you can start to analyze the case. So this is before you even know what happened, you get this really robust set of facts. Now, we throw AI into the mix, of course, because now the AI is doing what it does best, which is take information and synthesize it. But we're not asking it to decide what's important. We're telling it, here's the facts, here's what we consider to be important. Now analyze that. So what it first gives us is a high-level overview of this entire case, building upon this robust foundation of facts that it did not decide was important for us. We did that work. And then it tells us, okay, here's a high-level overview of your case. Let's drill down. So let's look into particular portions of your evidence that you might think are more or less important. And now you can really find what we call the needle in the haystack. So you're reading a particular section of the case and you're saying, okay, that's interesting. And then you drill down to the individual facts that feed into that 20 days of evidence. And here you can see the original verbatim text as well as an AI summary of fact. So if we go back to the chronology over here, how do PDFs get slotted? Similar to my colleagues before, the AI is reading the document and identifying. Again, I'm seeing a black box here. There's an issue with seeing the original document. I think this is a Teams problem. I'm just going to blame Teams for all my problems today. So the AI is reading the date, but the difference between GoodFact and some of the other products out there is that you can actually see the original document and confirm that the AI got the date right, and you can always go ahead and change that date here. So you don't need to worry that the AI might have gotten anything wrong at this point, because you can verify it. And similarly, we have an AI overview of all of the facts. Okay, so super simple to toggle back and forth between the original text of a fact and the AI summary. I can do that on a chronology wide basis, or I can do that on a fact by fact basis. So, and then I'm able to also edit the AI summary. So a lot of feedback between the user and the AI at all times, so you're never worried that the AI missed something. Now, I'll quickly go through some of the ways that you can structure your evidence to make it more helpful for you. So I have created some segments here for duty of care and standard of care. These are based on tags that I've added. And again, I don't want the AI to add those tags for me yet. We're working on a feature like that, but it needs to be super accurate for it to be useful for people. Otherwise, you're spending more time verifying. So in this case, the user adds the tags, and they're able to then filter by those tags and create these really helpful segments. And the segments are also coming into play here, because if I just want a summary of all of my duty of care facts, I can do that. If I just want a summary of all of the answers to undertakings that I got last week, and I don't need a summary of the whole case, I can do that. I just create a segment and I review that. All of these things are exportable, so you can work on them outside of GoodFact. So this Explore summary that's sort of horizontal gets turned into a Word summary that you can read on the train when you're heading back to work. Just make sure no one's looking over your shoulder. So we've got a table of contents, which are those story portions. And we have a high-level overview of the case right here. And then each story portion follows it with the facts either viewable or hidden as we move through. And this all links back to GoodFact, where I can view the document itself right here. So that's that email that was referred to. How many more minutes do I have, Simon? Can you show me with your hand? Because I can't hear anything. 4, 3, 2, 1. 1 minute? 1 minute. Okay, thank you. So the other way you can export all of this is to let's just go back to the chronology. You can export a bundle. So you can either export the entire chronology or a segment, and all of the documents in that segment would show up in a zip folder. So that looks like this right here. So I've actually exported everything, and I now have my chronology and all the underlying documents, which I can view like this. I open that Excel worksheet, and now I have my chronology in Excel and a link to each of the underlying documents. So I just open this one, and here it is. Funny how I'm able to do that in Adobe, but not in the app itself. I don't know why. I'm just going to assume Teams didn't ruin it for me here. So there we have the various exports, and I think that's my time. So a lot more to discuss, but this was just to give you a sneak peek. Any questions?
So Tally, same question to you as to the other presenters. What's in the roadmap for you guys? Sorry, Tally, did you get the question?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
I heard your question. Okay, so what's on our roadmap is, so I'll just quickly share my screen again. So that is going to help you understand our roadmap a bit better. Okay, so one thing we're working on actually right now, it should be complete by the end of July, is the ability to open PDF documents. And again, I don't think you can see them, but I guess let's go here. Let's go back to Adobe because it was being nicer to me. So you'd be able to open this within the app, and you would be able to essentially draw boxes around sections of your evidence that would constitute their own fact. And then you'd basically like right click, and that would generate facts that you selected within the PDF. And again, why is that important? Because if I just give a 10-page document to AI and I say, oh my God, AI, please find all the key facts in here, it's not reliable. And then it might miss things. This way, I draw my boxes around the facts that matter for me. and they automatically get turned into facts, and the AI will do its thing at that point. But at least I know that everything that goes into my chronology was truly important and nothing was missed. So that's our next big feature that we're releasing soon.
Super.
Okay.
Has anybody else got a question for Tali? See any hands? No? Okay, so that concludes the presentations. Thanks, Tali. So if there are any presenters left in the room, if you could leave the room so we can talk about you behind your backs, that would be fantastic.
There's Stephen still in the room, and obviously Tali at the moment. Okay, they are leaving, so that's no presenters in the room.
Excellent. Thanks for that, Ian. So, does anybody want to say anything about the presentations? Has anybody got anything to add? I mean, I think just from my point of view, a varied collection of products, and that was the intention, to give you a variety of different tools that had different potential use cases. Some of them fairly small businesses and are reasonably early on in their product development. So, or not product development, that's slightly unfair. In their instance as a company. So someone like Control AI, that's a fairly new business, whereas Lagora's probably better known and certainly quite substantially larger. So we wanted to give a broad
legal expense cover, please.
A broad picture. So yeah, has anybody got any questions they'd like to ask? Any thoughts they'd like to add to the presentations? Or is everybody either in a stunned silence or fully sated in terms of their appetite of discussions and thoughts about AI? Cool. Okay. Well, hopefully that means everybody's feeling very knowledgeable, very informed about AI. And when you feedback to folks, please do feedback to Foil if you'd like another event like this where we had another set of products, because as I said at the beginning, this is 4 of, frankly, at least tens, if not hundreds of legally focused AI products, and they are developing, each week almost a new one. We haven't had the biggest player in this particular room, which we might do next time. Also, if there was anything else that you want us to cover from an AI perspective, please let us know, be it by way of event or just as an organisation. As I said at the beginning, this really is, kind of one of the biggest topics for the present and the future. It will change the way we all work, and so consequently, absolutely, Foil wants to make sure we can support members with helping them procure, use, be risk kind of conscious when it comes to AI, be ethical when it comes to the use of AI. So let us know where we can help. But assuming nobody's had any brainwaves or kind of burning questions or things they'd like to add, we'll probably draw things to a halt there. And I'll wish you all a good weekend, and thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Cheers,
thanks everyone. Thanks for all attending.
Bye now.
Take care.
Thanks all.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.